Africa, a vast land of deserts, forests, mountains, and rivers, a continent of empires, trade, music, and legacy. But in the late 19th century, it became something else, a target, a treasure chest to be unlocked, owned, and exploited. By who? In the space of just a few decades, almost the entire continent was sliced up and claimed by European powers. The method? A conference held in Berlin. The consequences? Centuries of turmoil. This is the story of the scramble for Africa, how a continent was divided with ink and ambition and the scars it left behind. Before colonization, Africa was not a blank slate. Far from it. The continent was alive with civilization. The Ashanti Empire in modern-day Ghana, the Sokoto Caliphate in Nigeria, the Kingdom of Congo, Great Zimbabwe, and the trading cities of the Swahili coast. Africa had systems of government, armies, art, and international trade. Gold flowed from West Africa. Ivory and spices traveled the East Coast. Religion, culture, and language blended across centuries. But to European eyes clouded by racism and greed, Africa was uncivilized, a place of darkness to be enlightened. That was the myth. The truth was ignored, and soon that myth would become deadly. The spark came from one man, King Leopold II of Belgium. Obsessed with power and prestige, Leopold set his sights on the Congo Basin. He didn't come as a conqueror. He came as a philanthropist. He claimed he wanted to help the people of Africa. In reality, he wanted rubber, ivory, and control. 11th Leopold's secret seizure of the Congo sent shockwaves through Europe. Other nations feared they'd be left behind. Britain, France, Germany, Portugal all began sending explorers, soldiers, and traders into the interior. What followed was a mad dash, a race for land, wealth, and domination. But it was chaos. To avoid war among themselves, the European powers needed a plan. And that's when they called a meeting. In November 1884, European leaders gathered in Berlin, hosted by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. 14 nations, dozens of diplomats, not a single African. This was not a peace summit. It was a land auction. Over the course of 3 months, the powers agreed on a set of rules. No more claims without effective occupation. To own land, a country had to prove it controlled it. This decision turned Africa into a chessboard. Treaties were forced on African leaders who couldn't read the languages they were written in. Flags were planted, armies marched. Europe wasn't just scrambling, it was storming the gates of a continent. What came next was cartographic violence. European powers took out maps and rulers. Borders were drawn, not based on language, culture, or geography, but on convenience. A single line could cut through the land of a single people, separating families into different colonies. Tribes who had warred for centuries were lumped into the same administration. The British took control of Egypt and pushed south. France seized vast territories from Senegal to the Congo. Germany snatched areas of East and Southwest Africa. Portugal grabbed Mozambique and Angola. Belgium clung to the Congo like a personal kingdom. By 1914, 90% of Africa was under colonial rule. Only Ethiopia, which defeated Italy at the Battle of Adwa, and Liberia, backed by the U.S., remained independent. Life under colonialism was not civilization. It was suffering. In the Congo Free State, King Leopold's agents forced entire communities to meet impossible rubber quotas. Those who failed had their hands cut off. Villages were burned. Millions died in one of the deadliest atrocities of the 20th century. In German Southwest Africa, the Herero and Nama peoples rebelled and were hunted, starved, and exterminated in what many historians call the first genocide of the modern era. Across Africa, Europeans taxed what they didn't build, exploited what they didn't grow, and punished resistance without mercy. Children were forced into missionary schools. Traditional beliefs were banned. Entire cultures were rewritten, but resistance never stopped. The Zulu fought in the south, the Ashanti in the west, the Maji-Maji rebellion in the east. Everywhere, Africa pushed back. Colonial powers claimed they brought development, roads, railways, government, but these weren't built for Africans. They were built to move goods, gold, rubber, coffee, from the interior to the ports and onto European ships. Education was minimal. Healthcare barely existed outside European enclaves. Political power remained in the hands of white settlers and colonial officers. The colonial system created extractive economies that produced raw materials for export but nothing for local growth. Nations were left dependent, underdeveloped, and fractured. And perhaps most damaging of all, the sense of African identity was suppressed. Whole generations were taught to see themselves through European eyes. The past was erased, the future hijacked. The Berlin Conference may have ended in 1885, but its legacy lives on. The artificial borders drawn by Europe remain largely intact. They continue to fuel ethnic conflict, political instability, and civil wars. Rwanda, Nigeria, Sudan. The ghosts of colonization still haunt the headlines. Languages like English, French, and Portuguese dominate schools and governments. Western laws and constitutions were forced onto societies with no cultural connection to them. And the economies? Many still rely on exporting raw materials, just as they did a century ago. But despite it all, Africa rises. In the mid-20th century, Africa began to break its chains. Ghana gained independence in 1957. One by one, colonies became nations. Liberation movements fought, bled, and demanded their freedom. The age of empire was ending, but independence did not erase the past. It merely began the long journey of healing. Today, Africa is reclaiming its story through music, art, innovation, and leadership. It is young, bold, and determined. The scramble for Africa was a theft, a crime disguised as civilization, but Africa is not a victim.